Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel where we're talking land wholesaling, private lending, and new construction. And in today's video, this topic is going to be more so about lending, how you can get approved, what you need to qualify, how lenders look at your deals, and all the information that you need to have. How you're prepared, and pretty much how a lender prices out a deal. So, what I'm going to show you right here, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So pretty much the basic information obviously is going to be your information as the client. Typically, with private money, hard money, they're business to business lenders. So you need to have a corporation or LLC set up, you know, um, and typically anyone who owns 19% or sometimes 20% or more of the entity would need to sign on the loan. So if it was you and, a few friends or you and business associate, and let's say you're splitting it up, about four of y'all, 25% each. All of you would need to do a loan application. They would need to do a credit check and a background. So that's just something to think about. Obviously, you'll have your contact information there. With your experience, that's going to be very important because typically lenders are going to lend. They're going to look at your deal and try to evaluate your deal based on your experience, your credit, and the feasibility of the project, along with your liquidity. Those are the factors, right? So, obviously, you have your information here. What's the project information, right? So, is this a fix and flip? Is this a ground up construction, or is this a DSCR? DSCR pricing is a little bit different what's between lenders, but typically the ground up construction, the fix and flip, they're going to be short term loans, so anywhere between 12 to 15 months. What's the property type? So we're going to be talking single family residential. That's going to be townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, quads. And then, obviously, where is the property, right? That's going to determine feasibility. So, where's is the property in Houston, Texas? Is the property in Miami, Florida? Is the property in Nashville, Tennessee? Just where's the property, address, zip codes, how many units, what's the bed, bath, square feet, and what's the lot size? So, having all this information, it just makes it easier for you to get term sheets out. Makes it easier for lenders to get term sheets out to you, and the term sheets are less likely to be retraded, if you give them the correct information. So, if we kind of come over here, this information right here needed for a term sheet, loan application, ID, proof of funds. So the proof of funds can be from business bank accounts, personal bank accounts. If you have any type of brokerage accounts, Roth IRA, anything like that, you can send it in. Typically, with brokerage accounts, they take about 60 to maybe 70% of the value. And then your experience, your entity docs. So if you have an LLC, your certificate of formation, certificate of filing, your IRS EIN number, and then your operating agreement. Your experience docs is going to be basically let's say if you've done 5 fix and flips over the last 2 years and it's in an entity, that entity, you should be able to show settlement statements or HUDs. That's what that stands for, the HUDs that show that you've exited the property, right? So if you are a GC and you've worked as a sub, over 15 different properties and you're doing it a long time, lenders don't look at that as experience because you haven't signed as a guarantor on a loan and entered in, did your rehab, put it on the market and sold it and exited. So that's going to, and the same goes for builders, right? Ground up construction. Then your builder resume. So whoever's the GC on the deal that you're hiring to do the flip, the renovation, or who you're hiring to do your build, you need to have a sort of a resume for them, making sure that they have all the necessary insurance, like the builder's risk insurance. I believe there's another insurance. Slips my head right now, but simple resume, like how long they've been in the industry, maybe some contacts from past clients that they've worked with and built for. If they have a website's cool, phone number, name of the company, you could put that together in a Word document. That's not really hard. If you'll need a budget regardless, so a renovation budget and a construction budget. Typically for construction budgets, you always want to add a 10% contingency. And for renovation, I believe it's like maybe 5%. And then if this is primarily goes with new construction, the permits and the plans. So your plan set, your architectural plan set with the GLA key, and that GLA stands for general living area. So you want to have that. And the reason why it's important for you to have your budget, and especially if we're talking about new construction, your budget and your plans is going to be important in your survey, because when we send this stuff to a appraiser. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to get a subject to appraisal with the OSV, and OSV means opinion of site value. So in order for an appraiser to like really take a look at your property and compare it to the comps that they're going to use to like give a estimated value or what they think a value is going to be, appraised value is going to be, you need to be as detailed as possible, and your plans and all that stuff needs to be there. So they're picking the right comps, because, typically as lenders, we're going to order an appraisal, right? And when that number comes back, so if you have an expectation of a $450,000 value, and we order the appraisal and you give your stuff to them and they come back at, 410, that could affect your terms, right? Because we have to price it off of that appraisal. So it's best for you to really, really look at the quality of finishes, the square footage, like the area that you're in. So that way you're pulling actual comps. So that way your appraisal comes in, around what you're expecting. Sometimes they come in higher, sometimes they come in lower, but, that's just something to think about. And then, obviously, if you're doing a fix and flip, you'll need to have the purchase contract, right? So do you have the property under contract? You should be able to send that in. If you've already bought the land, then you need to have a settlement statement showing that you own the land, or a deed or whatever to show ownership. So like all this is needed for a term sheet. Um, so like just to kind of do, simple, like let's put some terms together. So what we'll do is, let's say if you're a fix and flipper, right? And you've done 5 deals over the last 2 years. So that's going to put you probably like around tier one. So we'll probably be at 90 and 70, probably at 90, 75. Yeah, 90, 75. So we'll come in here and we'll go LTC 90%, and then we'll come up to 75. And this is for fix and flip. And so you're probably looking at an interest rate of about, let's say, 8.5. So let's say 8.5 on the interest rate. Okay. And then you'll probably be at one, let's say 1.5 on the points. So now, and we're just making up numbers, right? So I'm just don't, this isn't a deal that I'm doing right now. Property insurance probably be 1,000. Boom. So let's say this is for a fix and flip. Let's say you're purchasing the property for 200,000, and it says construction budget, but this is the renovation, and it needs 40,000, and it's going to be worth, let's say the value is going to be worth 360. Let's use simple numbers, 360,000. Okay. So now we have to figure out what's the loan amount. So the blue is what's edited. So what's the loan amount, right? So we know we're capped here at 85, or here 75. I'm sorry, it should be 90. My bad. So 90. So all right. So it's going to be the lesser of the two. So what we'll do is we can go equals the value, this value times, let's say 90%. So now you see here the LTC, we're sitting at 135, and the LTV is at 90. So we're above all this. So we need to take this down. So like so what we can do, we can even try this way. We can go, all right, let's cap it at 75, equals that times that. Let's cap it at 75. So that still puts us over the 90, because you see the LTC here is 112. The LTC here is 90. So we got to be under that. So now what we can just do is, all right, we'll just go 250. Let's see, 250,000. Okay, so we're a little lower. So it's probably going to be 220. All right, we're a little above 90. We're at 91, so we need to go down a little bit more. So let's just go, let's try 215, see if that does anything. So that puts us at 89.58. Um, so I mean, we'll stick with there. Like we're close enough. All right, so when you look at this loan, it's going to automatically give you, if you come over here, the proof of funds that you need. This is the liquidity that you need to be able to show in your business bank account, personal, or brokerage account. So when you're seeing that at 8.5%, because you are an experienced builder, and credit, let's say your credit score is a 730, 750. So you're more than likely you'll probably get some terms like this. So for a $200,000 purchase, you're going to put $40,000 into it. You expect to sell it at 360,000. Now we look at your monthly payment at closing. So this is what you'll pay. This is what you're going to start paying the day you close the loan. Now, when you fully draw, and this is the max. So fully drawn means you're drawn on your budget, because this 40,000 that you need to renovate, you're going to make draws on. So it's going to be a $40,000 holdback. So when you're fully drawn on that 40,000, this is what your monthly payment's going to be. So like when you finish the property and you put it on the market, this is what your payment is going to be. So that's why it's important to, for you to actually be looking at the market while you're building, to stage the property, whatever you can do to get that property sold quick, right? So so when you take a look at here, this will be your closing cost. So you'll need to show that you have 47,000 liquid. You'll come to the closing table with 34,000. So the points, this is where, the lenders, this is kind of small, but 3,225. If you were to have a broker, like let's say you talk to a client and their job is to go out and find you, lenders who can fund your deal. And let's say they charge you 2% to do that. So you see how your closing costs went up, 4,300, because you have a broker on the deal who you're paying 2%. So now this to me, so how do we check and see if this is a profitable deal? So what we're going to do is you're going to go to the ROI column. So what you're going to see here is basically how profitable your deal is going to be. So what we'll do is, let's say for a $40,000 rehab, let's say it takes you, let's just leave it at 3 months, right? So you have here the lenders coming in with 86% of the money you need for the deal. You're coming in, at 13% or 14, let's round it up. So let's say it takes you 4 months. It takes you 4 months to renovate. And let's say the property sits for 3 months, right? We're in a slow market. So if you sell it, let's say you sell it in month 7, because remember, you close a loan. It took you 3 months to do the renovation. So 1, 2, 3, and it's set. So let's say you sold it right here. You make 75 grand from this, 171% return on investment. I'm looking at this like this is profitable. I'll lend on this. Typically, lenders, you need to be making at least 25% ROI. Otherwise, like if anything goes wrong on a deal that, where the ROI is that small, it eats into the margins, and you'll probably have to go ahead and, do a short sale. So like this, lenders don't want that, but that's just something to think about. So like, this is how, if you were looking at a fix and flip. So let's say if you were a new construction, and we'll always use experience, right? Let's just go with experience. So for experience, let's say experienced borrower, we can do 9.5, and we'll probably be around the same for somebody like, who's done 6, 7 plus 8 plus builds. So we'll keep it at 90.75. Now, let's say you already bought the land, because this is the difference between not wholesalers, but builders and fix and flippers. Usually builders come in with the land already bought. So that way, they won't pretty much have closing costs. So let's say a builder, they bought the land, they've done all the permitting and stuff, and they're ready to go vertical. So they've done the permitting, and let's say the lot is worth 125,000. Okay. And they're building, let's say they're building 2 townhomes. So they're building two, let's say 2,000 square foot townhomes. So 2,000 equals 2,000 times, and it cost them 110. It cost them $110 a foot to build. So 2,000 times 110 times two, since they're building two. Okay. And then their expected sale price, let's say they expect to sell each for 380,000. So 380,000 times two, so 760. And yeah, they're at 9.5, 90. And then so there's probably going to, since it's 2 townhomes, it's going to equal 2,000. And so now what we're going to do is, now let's put these terms together. So you see how low we are? So we need to basically up the loan amount. So we're at 38%. So and that's going to be, so let's say we'll double it, and we'll go 400,000. Okay, we're creeping up. We still got room to go up. So let's go 475,000. All right, so we're kind of getting there. We're getting there. Okay, we're getting there. So let's just go up to 490 and see what that does. All right, so we still got room. So let's go 495. And you can kind of see what I'm doing. Like, this is the number that I'm looking at. So we'll stop here at the 90. So, okay, we're capped at 90, right? Because the LTC, the maximum is 90 and the maximum LTV. So it's going to be the lesser of the two, or at the two. So you see on this loan right here, they need, the estimated value is 760. The loan amount for this new construction project, this 2 townhome project, is going to be 510. They need 440,000 to build both. They bought the lot already. You can see the liquidity that they need to show. And I know you're asking, like, why is it less when the fix and flip project was less money, the less loan amount was more? It's because their equity piece. They paid cash for the land, and they did all the permitting out of pocket. So you can see here, their cash to close is negative. So there's two things that they can do. They could get a check for this amount at closing if it's going to be used for a business purpose, or what they can do is we can zero this out, and we can build in interest reserve in this loan. So, and what interest reserve means is their interest only payments right here. They're interest only because your private money is interest on what you borrow. So let's say he has a $440,000 budget, but they only use 400. You're not going to pay interest on the 440 because you only use 400. So it's interest only on what you draw. So when you see here, the day of closing, they're paying $554. And this is when they're fully drawn on this $440,000 budget. This is how much per month they're going to pay until that property sells. So you see, I added in interest reserve and I zeroed this out because they could use this money to make these payments as opposed to paying out of their own pocket. That's why it's important when you're building to go ahead and come in with the land as the equity piece, right? So now we do the same thing, making sure you have these items for the term sheet, and then you go over to your ROI. You see here it says borrow initial investment 0. That's not right. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go plus, because the borrower has invested, right? They paid 100,000 for the land, 115, whatever, and they did the permitting. So they're really at about 20%. So let's say for 2 townhomes, it's going to take them, let's say it takes them 5 months to build it, right? It takes them 5 months to build it. And then the other example, I forgot to do this on the other one, guys. I'm sorry about that. But so 5, we're going to drag this out to 5, right? So this is at 5 months. So they say they build it in month 5, okay? And let's say it sits on the market for 90 days. It sits on the market for 90 days. So we're going to drag it out here, and they sell in month 8. This to me, I mean, it's not bad. The numbers aren't horrible, but let's see what happens if they can get it done faster. So let's say 3 months, and then we go boom. They build it in three, and it sits on the market. Let's say they build it in three, and it sits on the market for 2 months, and they sell right here. Still not too bad, you know what I mean? So what I would say when I'm looking at this, it's like I know builders want to make at least, close to six figures, if not six figures or more on a project. So you can see, okay, they possibly maybe overpaid for the land because that like you make the money when you buy with real estate. So let's say if we 125,000 and we bring it down to 100,000. Let's say 100,000, they got the land, they did everything. So you can see the proof of funds went up. Now, if you go back to the ROI here, and let's say they take some, like we have here, it takes them 3 months to build it, boom, and it sits on the market for two. They sell it in month five. Now we're talking. So this is after everything is paid. This is net profit after everything is paid. So this is why it's like lucrative because you can do two projects a year and be, if we're kind of no numbers are looking similar, you're at an 80, that's 160 off of just two new builds a year. And if you're doing them in, like you're basically the first half of the year, you do your projects and then say you don't do any, but you're still living off of 160, right? I don't recommend, you go that route. If you can, you can, but this is why it's so lucrative to do this. And this is how lenders put this stuff together. So when you're calling and trying to get loans, you got to understand that these are real estate loans, RTL. So if there's any type of like special thing that you're trying to do outside of maybe Airbnb, like maybe a little like rehab center or a drug alcohol center, whatever. That's not what these aren't the lenders for that, right? If you're like that's not what private money is or hard money is. Typically, it's going to be asset based. If you're looking at hard money, private money is going to be a mixture of the asset and the borrower. So they're kind of in between bank and hard money. These loans do close fast if you can get these docs in fast. That's all going to be determined off of you. So that's just something for you to think about. I just kind of wanted to show you, as you're wholesaling land and you need to be looking at, you might come across land that you're getting really cheap. That's like, instead of trying to wholesale it, let me partner with a builder and say, look, I'm bringing the land to the table. Even if we can do 60-40, just to kind of get your feet wet, it may be worth it because you can sign on a loan together. You can use that as experience. So instead of you coming in not doing one, zero, you can say I have one deal experience. Maybe the terms will get better for you, or just maybe the builder's willing to partner on you. You can have that structure set up. So, that's really, and the last thing I wanted to go over is kind of show you what a construction budget looks like. So here's the construction budget. And a renovation budget looks the same. You can call it either or, but this is for new construction. You'll put the address, the borrower's name, um, the number of draws, like the draw submissions. I think it's going to have to be down here, like all the information for the property, square foot, bathroom, like all that. And then you'll have the permits. You'll put the cost of the permits here, your architectural plans and elevations, the engineering costs, legal, marketing, planning. All your soft cost stuff goes here. Soft cost means like stuff that's not a part of the build itself, the vertical build, the management, developer fee, your general contractor, your construction draws. So usually construction draws could be anywhere from 150 to 350. So if you have like four draws or five draws on your project, just do 200 times five, 350 times five. That'll get you here to your totals. Now we come into the hard cost stuff. So your demolition work, site prep, foundation, any other prep, you'll have that. The numbers need to be accurate. They need to match. So you plan, like you price out your budget. Like some high level, you'll go, somebody say it might take me 115 foot to build 2,000 square feet. High level, okay, 115 times 2,000. That's the example that I use to kind of put it together for you. But usually you'll build the budget out. You'll build it out. Experienced builders, they build it out. But just to kind of show you high level, so obviously like your roofing, framing, siding, your fascia, exterior, all that, your HVAC, rough, trim out, electrical, plumbing, all that's here. And you need to be specific as to the quality of what you're using because that way the appraiser is going to compare your properties to actual similar properties. Right. So if you leave all this stuff blank and don't give him anything, he's probably going to assume builder grade. And so that may affect your value. So it's important to be as detailed as possible here in terms of like, the quality of what you're using, the brand, whatever. Then you come down here, your windows, interior doors, insulation, drywall, carpet, kitchen, backsplash, bathroom vanities, mirrors, hardware, shower glass, fireplace, all that stuff. Your masonry, stucco, exterior paint, pressure wash, landscape, gutter, all that's going to be here. And you see here where it says 5%, there's a 5% contingency right here. We really need to change that. Really needs to be 10. So we can just change that to 10 because 5% is really kind of like for renovations, but this needs to be 10. So it'll add basically whatever your budget is, it'll take 10% of that budget and add it in. So then we'll get the total. So when you have all this information, like it's important to be very thorough, especially with new construction. You want to be very thorough, so that way your appraisal has the highest chance of coming back to a value that you want. Especially when you're on site and you're working with these subcontractors, all the stuff is there. Your GC can understand it. Make sure you include your GC fee in your budget. That's pretty important. So, yeah, with that being said, that's really what I wanted to show you today is how lenders look at these deals, how you as a borrower can be prepared and what to expect and see how they're evaluating your deal because they're going to use comps from the MLS or maybe from Redfin. So when you're sending in and requesting terms, send them some sold comps to similar so they have a starting place because they can always come in and add it to their CMA or maybe request that the appraiser take a look at those and if he deems them worthy to be included in the comps that he uses to value your property, he can do that. So that's all I have for you today. If you found any value in this video or any videos, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, help the channel grow. If you have any questions or you want specific topics, about wholesaling land, about private money, about new construction, put it in the comment section and I can try to answer it best I can. And, I do have a land profit programs, one time $97 payment. If you want to talk about wholesaling land or you need help, doing this, you want to go out and, get funding for deals and stuff, we can definitely talk about it. So with that being said, let's go out here and let's go close some deals.